Today, we're looking at a blue ink from Monteverde Document Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that if you're in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then inked up this Pilot Metropolitan with a 1.0 stub. I wrote with it for a day and then used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 7 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation because there was none. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is slightly lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 10 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby shows no color variation, and we didn't get any. And how about Rhodia? No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Medium is a little darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both does show us a little color variation far left to far right, although we're not getting it in the writing. I agree with Vita that we learn a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is interesting because as it pushes up, it's a very uniform blue all the way. So it is bonding with the paper at the same speed that it's moving up until it's basically out of ink. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes almost all of that blue is bonded and in place, not budging. This is going to be a very permanent ink, but it is called Document Blue. Now we do see a very light blue that has pushed its way up and been left. It's probably a color that's in there to help give it some character, I don't know, but it's definitely a different blue. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it does as well as you would expect. It is completely unaffected by the highlighter, making it a great ink to use in a note-taking situation. Now, water's really not making this ink budge. Same with pen flush. Now, that light area down the right, that is not the pen flush. But if you go straight left from the F and then start traveling down, it's a more vivid blue. That's actually where the pen flush was. It made it more vivid, a blue. 1/3 bleach solution, not a lot of effect on this ink. It's breaking up the paper more than the ink. So to be clear, I did not have issues cleaning this ink out of the Noodler's Nib Creeper or the Pilot Metropolitan. So while it's very permanent on the paper, it didn't create a problem for me cleaning it out of the pens. I test for viscosity or flow using a thing called a tilt test. I will link how I do that, the video of it, down below or up in the cards. I also then put it onto a standard distribution so it's more easily seen with all of the inks that I've tested. Now, for the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Monteverde's Document Blue has a viscosity of 1.28, making this a ridiculously wet. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples. Now for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Monteverde's Document Blue has an average dry time of 10 seconds. So despite it being ridiculously wet, it bonds with the paper very quickly, giving it a fast dry time. Instead of finding inks that look like Monteverde's Document Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now, to me visually there's a slight purple lean in this blue, so I wanted to go with a magenta. And I chose Noodler's Black Swan and Australian Rose. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper, a black and red notebook, and Franklin Crystal. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper, more to see what kind of tone change we might get from this ink for having a yellow paper. And it's really very interesting because as fast as it does dry, it is absolutely affected by the yellow background. Look at how on medium it went from a very definite blue to a turquoise. Same with the extra fine and the stub. So this is a very fast drying, very permanent ink that's also quite translucent. So it's very affected by the paper you put it onto. Black and red notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. Now the extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 2 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine. It's even a little darker than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 3 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're not getting it. And last up, Franklin Christoph. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 4 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, even darker than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Monteverde's Document Blue? This is a straightforward, down-to-business blue ink. No standout qualities except for its ridiculous permanence that it tends to have. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience? It does tend to get just a little bit darker with some wetter pens. I do think a medium to wet flow, medium or fine pen is going to do what's best. Now that's going to really be dictated by what paper you're writing on with this. Keep in mind, it is very permanent, and sometimes permanent inks can be a little aggressive. If you've made it this far and you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'm going to remind you to subscribe. Thanks for watching.